After the Cataclysm, there's still a pecking order, with the Immortal Emperor at the top, then the Lord Governors and the Imperium, the local nobility and councils, etc, etc. All the way down to your blue coats and then the people underneath that they step on. And last I checked, noble bloodlines aren't really the best for upward mobility. But there is opportunity there if you can take it. If you look past the institutions, the surface of things, if you look to the underworld of the Dusk. It's true there's a pecking order there as well. There's still the big gangs up on top of everything, the pre-existing organizations and rivals, but this is a ladder you're going to climb. Hi, hello, and welcome back to Blades in the Dark, the all-rogues tabletop RPG chock full of ghosts and gang violence. Where today we're talking about just that, the gangs, the underworld of Duskfall. Or as some call it, just the Dusk. But yes, we're kicking off the faction side of the game. What's actually going on in Duskfall? Who are the individual groups and parties at play? And having your own crew of scoundrels and or vigilantes, you kinda have to deal with the majority of the factions being other gangs. Now there's still different ranks within the other factions, there just isn't much of a pecking order, or open violence or turf wars. Because that's just the institutions, that's just the nobles and Lord Governor. And you know, all the other institutions beneath them. But when it comes to the gangs, this is a violent ladder. And you get to start at the very bottom. And these aren't the only gangs within Duskfall, there are plenty of others, namely nameless ones, small crews here or there, orphans on a street with knives. These are the notable ones within Duskfall, those that are a bit higher up the ranks, some power players here or there, their names have gone around. And at one point in your games, maybe yours will go around the city. So, this is not super in-depth on the actual gangs themselves. I mean, it will be covering certain things here or there, but the actual like plots and hooks, a lot of that can still be kept secret, same with the NPCs. So that's left for the, the storyteller or the GM to actually look over and read through, so there's no spoilers. So if you're a player, you are welcome to watch through this. And also, just to condense everything, this is a very brief, here you go, here's some bits about the faction, here's some things that's cool about them, some things you might be able to do with them, what's going on in Duskfall, where are some of these? So now that that's out of the way, let's get going. But going from bottom to top, we have Ulf IRONBORN, literally just named after an individual, no gang name or anything. Still a gang, not literally just the individual, a group of Skovlander refugees that have all kind of flocked underneath Ulf IRONBORN, and still do, it's his name that carries the weight of the gang. Having come over from Scotland, it's not that things have gone wrong or anything, he's come here to make a gang, to set foot within the underworld of Duskfall and make a name for himself. A fresh face here to seek turf and already above what your average starting gang would be. Again, you start at 0, this man's come into the city for like a month and is already at tier 1. While it might not seem like much, Ulf himself is a monster of a man, not to mention the people he surrounds himself with are also notorious monsters of men. And women. Skovlanders are built different. While they do also run a gambling den, they have their HQ out of an inn nearby it. Right now they're currently known for their smash and grabs, and the busting of their kneecaps of other minor gangs around them, and cutting out their turf violently. And what doesn't help is the fact there's different true Duskers going around, kinda ticking off Ulf. Not specifically directed at him, but because of the mass influx of Skovlander refugees into Duskfall, Ulf IRONBORN is already a naturally angry man, and very proud of the fact he's a Skovlander, so he gets violent real quick when those people come up. Next up we have the Lost, a group of ex-soldiers, thugs, mercenaries, different other previous gang members. They have all come to repent, weighing their own sins with new good deeds, acting in vigilante justice. In particular, going against cruel foremen and destroying certain workhouses. Their hideout's made out of an old rail car that's been entirely rusted to the tracks. And do not get it wrong, they're not taking extra pay, they are actual vigilantes, even when just sitting within the underworld factions. And they do take this seriously, a bit more to a religious or ritual extent. Having under their beds these piles of stones that they keep around them, a stone added to the pile every time they weigh a sin with a just deed they commit. And their influence is actually quite far for being such a low-ranking faction. It's only over 2 districts, but it's still every poverty-stricken street within Coleridge and Dunslow. And they're kinda doing well. Issue is, well, you see, unions are beginning to form in some of those districts, and, they're acting as kind of a symbol. There's a lot of foremen and guilds in blue coats, and basically everything in the institutions wanting them gone. Next up are good old smugglers being the Foghounds, named after their main and largest ship, the Foghound itself, a proper Void Sea capable steamship. These are all your washed up sailors or washed up dock workers that have all ended up a bit scarred from previous Leviathan hunts or just going out with the Navy. Washed up and washed back up onto the sea. Their HQ being an underground canal dock within the city, they have heavy territory and control over east and northern routes out of the city, namely along the rivers and canals. But also their influence stretches outside the city as they've pretty much guaranteed a reliable northern Void Sea route. They also have Old Northport supply caches outside the city, so they don't always have to risk coming in and out whenever there's a little bit of light. But being of low influence and of a low tier, again, they only have the one big ship, they're kind of aiming to find a new patron. They've only really been doing odd jobs here or there and have recently acquired entire dominance over those two different routes out of the city. So they want to find a reliable patron so they can have a continuous route of income coming in. Next are the Wraiths, a masked crew of thieves and spies, and very mysterious and creepy. Actually quite notorious as their hunting grounds are over at Silkshore Night Market, with numerous hidden supply caches on rooftops. Sorry, not caches, shelters! They have small hideouts scattered throughout the rooftops of the city. And to aid with each of their own members, they don't even know who each other are. They only have aliases and sign languages and secret codes to communicate. They can still talk and do other things as well, and they still have their regular persona they show when they're not going out and thieving. But that's partly where the name comes in. They're almost wraith-like, not speaking this strange mask and dark cloak. While they're pretty confident with their position, getting blackmail on people, usual smash and grab here or there in the middle of the night, cat burglary, they recently pulled off a heist on a brothel. And within the chaos, they managed on accident to find Void Sea maps of Leviathan hunting routes. Private Void Sea maps owned by a specific noble family. And they're looking for a buyer, but that is a hot item. Next are the Red Sashes, an Aruvian sword school turned criminal organization. Not necessarily because it's fallen on hard times, but you're training everyone in violence, you have the connections, and the people joining you are all taking oaths into this order. Also, Aruvian sword arts are one of the optional playbooks within the main book itself outside of the others, so anyone could dip into it if you get the training. So it's not just regular fighting, they are doing crazy stunts. But a little obvious, their sword school slash temple is their HQ, set within Crowsfoot. And their flow of income is a set of high-end drug dens across Crowsfoot and the docks. Now, the Red Sashes don't just have their own thing going on, they still have some of their own minor plots, but right now they're caught up in the war over Crowsfoot, which we're going to cover whenever we cover every faction in it. So for right now, just know, fighting over territory. Next up are the LAMPBLACKS, a group of lamplighters that have turned to crime after, well, their job's gone. Previously going around lighting the lanterns of the city or those of noble houses or the chandeliers, their job's taken out because of electric lights. So they've turned to crime in Crowsfoot, running a series of brothels and cheap drug dens across the district. With the office of an old coal warehouse acting as their HQ, they're a bit built up, a bit defensive, namely because they have the locals on their side. Or your average person around Crowsfoot, they're kind of seen as lovable rogues. Not steal rich, give to the poor, not vigilantes, just, they're getting by. They lost their jobs. Their entire guild just went extinct. But they are also caught up in the war over Crowsfoot, so moving on. Next up is the Grinders, a bunch of Scotlanders from the docks, some over from Lockport, namely refinery workers from Lockport. Because years ago, after the negative effects of Leviathan Blund Refinery were discovered, it was all moved to Lockport after the Unity Wars, up in Scotland from Duskfall. So the ships come back here to restock and take off from Duskfall, but the actual Leviathan bodies are then dumped and refined over in Lockport. The massive smokestacks from the refineries are rising over the city, and whenever it condenses into rain, mutating those beneath it. Not always guaranteed, but long-term exposure can leave you scarred, changed, leaving a very intimidating reputation to the Grinders, let alone their actual objective. So with their HQ an abandoned dock warehouse with a secret underground canal connection, their use of canal tools, docking tools and expertise, some smuggling here or there, they also have wrecking tools and explosives. Because their current objective is to try and steal a warship. Right now they're just committing smash and grabs and just trying to gather up weapons, resources, and the means to set up this massive heist. And then head all the way back to Lockport and sabotage the refineries. But for now, they're fighting for turf and resources like everyone else in the underworld. Now the Grey Cloaks, bluecoats turned to crime, specifically after one watch was framed. Now, a little caveat to the frame bit, they were still taking bribes like everyone else, but it's the fact a specific case against a noble lord came up. Then to the burning sabotage of all the reports, the evidence within their own station was framed on them. Now the few from that station have become as almost a rallying point for all other bluecoats that have lost their titles. That have lost their badge, their authority, still holding on to, the caps, the outfits, looking like proper bluecoats, but being a full-blown criminal organization with the side activity of still trying to prove their innocence. At least in that one case. With their HQ in the basement of that old burnt-down city watch, they hold several hideouts and apartments above a tobaccoist and 6 towers, and alongside that they run a pit fighting ring and a gambling den. But probably the biggest danger to them is the fact, again, they can just hide behind their authority or the previous authority, but it's the connections. It's knowing what magistrates take bribes. It's knowing all the other corrupt officers in the other watches. Now to some of the proper strange ones. Some of these have had their own little touch of the strange, but we have the Dimmer Sisters. Housebound recluses within a fine manor and grounds, being their HQ within 6 towers. You will not really meet them directly, you'll only meet the people they work through. And if you do try to meet them directly by breaking in, you won't be seen again. No one who has entered their manor uninvited has come out alive or undead. But the Dimmer Sisters are notorious for the weird, the eclectic, and nearly cornering all the illegal spirit trade. Anything dealing with not just spectrology, but ghosts, the undead, necromancy, and having their own flock of apothecaries and witches. And this flock can stretch from your crazed street whisperer who is raised by ghosts to the other end of it of someone who's experimenting on the cutting edge of sparkcraft. But all of them slowly brought into the folds and petals of the sisterhood. And what they're currently doing is the fact they have almost properly cornered the illegal spirit trade. To what ends are they practicing all of this? Why are they gathering so many whisperers and apothecaries? Maybe you should break in and find out. Next up are the Crows, the previous gang of Crowsfoot. Their HQ is set up in what's called the Crow's Nest, an old city watchtower, panopticon-like, looking over the entire district in the center of it. They run almost all the gambling dens in Crowsfoot, and also have an extortion racket at the docks to the north. But things aren't going that well for the Crows. While they used to own basically the entire district, the whole thing being their turf, they've had leadership issues. As in, their previous leader was killed mysteriously, and they're under new management, which has shaken things up, well, everything up, or is being seen as leaving the district up for grabs. Next up are the BILLHOOKS, a very infamous, brutal gang that seems to get away with way too many things. Way too many obvious, bloody things. Part of their name is for the usual places you can find them, at their HQ, which is a butcher shop. They also own turf within a stockyards, a slaughterhouse, several animal finding pits and gambling dens, and several terrified merchants' businesses which they regularly extort. But bringing cleavers, billhooks, and even glaives to the fight. Notorious for bladed weaponry to butcher their opponents, leaving their bodies out in the open, strewn across battlefields and alleyways, and purposely leaving them up for display if they need to make a point. But right now, they're also having some leadership issues, with one of their old leaders who's also aging a bit, left within Ironhook prison, and the family at the center of the gang kinda having arguments over who should be really in charge. Next up are the Silver Rings, a Severosi mercenary company that had helped on the Empire side during the Unity War. They are renowned cavalry and ghost killers. And they currently don't have any turf within the city. Nothing really spectacular. No extortion rackets, no gambling dens. They are just a large force. Being a visiting force and not really being old or established, they're just a mercenary company taking up in the Mustang, a large inn with stables to occupy their horses and their crew. But right now, their turf isn't in the city. They're not doing your extortion rackets or gambling dens and all that. Right now, they're going out into the Deathlands, or specifically the Lost District. The Lost District being, well, the lost district of the city when the lightning walls kind of had to be pulled back. The place is chock full of undead and powerful demons and spirits, and the spirit wardens actually keep a tight lid over who can enter the Lost District. Even the regular scavengers sent from Ironhook don't usually go directly into the Lost District, unless being brought in or watched over by one of the spirit wardens. But the Silver Rings are making their own way in, taking some relics here or there, or their own private smuggling routes through the area, riding on horseback and being able to hunt these ghosts, protected by possession from their silver nails that have been bent into rings. They don't want to just keep that smuggling route and sneak past the spirit wardens. They want to take over the Lost District, kill all the demons and spirits in there, and just occupy it. They're fine outside the walls, and once they've cleared it out of the spirits and kicked everyone else out of the Lost District, all those other scavengers and smugglers, and the spirit wardens, then they'll have all the lost relics, all the lost arts from the manors, mansions of the previous nobility. Now next is a weird one. So, Lord SCURLOCK. It's kind of just a name, similar to Ulf Ironborn, but while Ulf Ironborn was just a name that people were rallying behind, Lord SCURLOCK is just a single person. Now the SCURLOCK family is a noble line that was here centuries ago and really important to the development of Duskfall. But at some point they fell into hard times and certain members became a bit of a recluse. There might be just a strange nephew of Lord SCURLOCK or a distant cousin currently occupying the dilapidated manor. But as far as anyone in the public eye knows, it's pretty much a fallen house barely getting by in 6 towers. But Lord SCURLOCK isn't a recent Lord SCURLOCK. If the rumors are to be believed, he's been around 4 centuries. Either as a vampire or sorcerer, a demon in disguise, who knows? In any case, he is powerful. Even within the book, that's not just the rumors. You have to treat him as if he's 20 people. When you're talking about engagements or fights, he counts as 20 people. Several pacts, rituals, a secret hideout out within the Deathlands. He can't be seen by ghosts. He's not interacted by any of them. He makes no noise when he's walking around. It's like the early scenes of Bram Stoker's Dracula. There's secret canal routes, secret tunnels, secret ritual sites just all across the city, and a massive portfolio that keeps all his projects funded. Multiple aliases of different family members, previous generations. This is the recent Lord Scurlock. He's not the 300-year-old one. Don't be ridiculous. But of all these places, the positions of these businesses, these strange ritual sites, these previous occult temples that have been purposely dug up by people hired out by an unknown benefactor, all of these are building towards something. And no matter the case, when it comes to Lord Scurlock, something dangerous. Maybe not bad, but definitely dangerous. Next is the Circle of Flame, the Gentry's secret society. A group of antiquarians and scholars, and all of this entire organization acting as a cover for graft, vice, murder, all the terrible things, extortion on top of that, anything for their collection. As their main goal is actually the collection and study of the occult. Again, not occult directly. They're not here worshipping something or following blindly some teaching they found on a tablet. They're here to collect the tablet and kill the cult. Not because of any moral reason or idea of like keeping that influence out of the city. They just want the tablet and don't want someone coming back for it. But their HQ is the Centralia in Six Towers, a club, their own private organization and clubhouse. And while that might seem like an obvious target and just an easy thing to hit, it's the fact they have a vast treasury and private security force and all their own private hitmen to go out and find these things, or to take out anything that could threaten their collection. And their collections and studies as well, this massive hoard of arcane occult knowledge and artifacts. Next are the Unseen, the most secretive of the societies that people don't even know if they're really there or not. Across the entire city, they have multiple bits of vice dens, gambling dens, extortion rackets, none of which properly know who they're paying directly to. All these smaller gangs, individuals on the streets, it's a chain of people that lead to the Unseen. And even when you get to the top or work your way up there, you might know you bumped into them, potentially, if they let you. You know, it's like those aliens from Doctor Who. But they are also well off and integrated. They have several townhouses, high-end stuff, or at the very least the other high-end parts of the city. But out of everything within the city, there are still a handful of organizations they haven't been able to get their hands in yet. None of their close-tied spies. And lastly, we have the Hive. Doing proper business, they're just a merchant's guild. It's not a monopoly. It's not a cartel of any kind. It's a cartel, it's a cartel. But they are a vast array of merchants spread throughout the whole city and of influence, connections to the Ministry of Preservation. And they are legitimate. They actually run proper shops. They have proper supply routes. They sell things normally. They just also happen to run the largest contraband in the city. Not a single thing. They just run the largest contraband trade within the city. And on top of that contraband, their connections to the Ministry of Preservation, other members of the council, their vast array of private mercenaries, their large treasury, their own private resources they can call in, and their means of transport. Canals, proper ships, private trains, carriages, their own private holes, and this is the top of the underworld currently in Duskfall, as they're mostly legitimate. But what's currently going on with them is that their leader had relations, rumored to be romantic, with the previous leader of the Crows. We finally wrap back around to Crowsfoot, all kicking off with the mysterious death of the previous ruler of Crowsfoot. An entire district that's basically run by the criminals, sitting with the crow's nest up above, acting as a perch and throne. All the people they had under the thumb began to shake away or join or take different sides here or there. The LAMPBLACKS begin to go over for turf. With the Crows weaken, they think that they could set up shop within Crowsfoot. It can be their district here or there. New gambling then there, a new bit of an extortion racket over there. You don't have to work for the Crows anymore. I mean, your old boss is dead. You then also have the Red SASHES. Seeing the leader of the Crows dead, this is a fine opportunity to finally step in. Take those new gambling dens, take that turf, just take the whole district. Your temple's here as well. They don't just need that tower over in the Crow's Nest. And it started small, namely going over here or there, just taking a gambling den, a small hold, one of the previous Crow's sources of incomes. Then they bumped into each other. Some young members fought, they killed each other, and it only escalated from there. What went from just taking turf when the Crows were down on their luck turned into an all-out war between the two, the LAMPBLACKS and the Red SASHES. with the crows in the middle, attempting to keep a hold on everything within Crow's Foot and attempting to try and set their authority over the district, which is still shaking as this war especially goes on, destroying buildings, destroying sources of income, and as the Bluecoats are coming almost in droves, or at least asking for them to come in droves. The local watch swamped by the mass increase in gang violence. And it's not just the shops or the previous holds that the Crows had on them, it's all the other minor gangs. You're either with the LAMPBLACKS or with the Red Sashes, and if you're not with them, you're with the enemy. And all of this going on while looming in the background as a threat is the Hive having an interest in what happened to the Crows and their connections there. What happened to the previous leader? What happened to that death? Who's gonna win out in the war? Are the Bluecoats actually gonna get their reinforcements? Is Lord SCURLOCK just gonna appear out of nowhere doing a ritual on the big tower of the Crow's Nest? Is the leader of the Hive gonna step in for her own personal reasons and then upscale this thing entirely? But even if just your starting gang is not affiliated with any of these at all, if you begin doing jobs within Crow's Foot, or having your turf stretch into Crow's Foot at all, or parts of the docks here or there, or anything just adjacent to these other organizations, you will get caught up in the mess. In fact, that goes for any of these. Cause it's not kumbaya in the underworld here. Everyone here is fighting for scraps at the bottom. There are those hoarding it at the top, there's still then the city above them as well. It's not just a pecking order where you have to take commands. You are bite, gnashing, gnarling, crying, screaming, cutting your way to the very top through the bodies of all the other gangs. You would have started from the bottom, but it's going to be you, not even just your crew, you, who owns this city in the end. Thank you for watching the video, and man, this was a lot more packed than I thought it was going to be. Initially from doing the notes, and actually getting down and around to recording it. Even really condensing everything, or just giving not going into details on certain NPCs, or plots, or hooks, it's still a lot. And especially when you take the other parts of the city into account and how they can bump into everything, especially each other and your crew. Because that's a part of the faction game in the Spider, is you are not just you or just your party, you are a crew. You build up a gang, you gain influence, you gain turf. Think of these factions as not just a single leader that you need to take out. The faction is an enemy. These are things you're up against, not even just the city and the cults on the other side of things. You're a gang, this is the underworld, get fighting. But no, we are back to Blades in the Dark. Thank you for watching the video, a thank you to my patrons. I hope you're having a nice day, and if you're not, I hope you do.